while we all know technical difficulties can happen, if there's one thing you hope would at least work 90% of the time, it's dialing 911. And typically that's the case. But there's been a recent issue here in Lubbock with some callers never getting through to dispatchers. And one of those in need over the weekend was a family in South Lubbock. Our Jaxie Pigeon picks up the story from there. Jaxie?
Matt, Renee Acker tells me she was in full panic when her father fell over the weekend. She didn't know what happened or how it happened, but she did know she needed to call for help immediately. Her emergency calls to 911 went unanswered, though.
I came in to find my dad on the floor, bleeding out of the back of his head. I didn't know at that moment how much.
Renee Acker's 91-year-old father had collapsed. Blood splattered everywhere. She says she called 911 several times, even from different phones, but could never get through to a dispatcher.
I never in my life thought that when you called for help, there wouldn't be anybody.
Acker ran over to her neighbors for help. One neighbor called in and was able to get through to the non-emergency line.
I didn't think that the amounts of blood that were spewing out of the back of my dad's head was non-emergent.
Luckily, her father wore a medical alert necklace, and pressing that button sent help their way. But that was over 15 minutes after the scary fall.
They tell me, make sure you keep pressure on the back of that head with a dry towel. Well, we soaked 5 towels.
In 2022, more than 30,000 of the 183,000 total 911 calls answered by LPD were abandoned. That means the caller hangs up before the call is answered. In a recent statement, Lubbock Mayor Trey Payne says the city's 911 dispatch issue should be improving, not getting worse. Last summer, the Lubbock City Council gave LPD nearly $7.5 million. Funds that Mayor Payne says should have been, quote, effectively used to address the 911 issue. We've reached out to LPD about these concerns, but we haven't heard back just yet. Acker says if it weren't for her father's medical alert device, he may not still be here with us today.
That's not something that we are dependent on the taxpayers for. We pay for that out of our pocket. We're fortunate to be able to do that.
Acker wants to make sure something is being done to keep this from happening again.
This is real. This happened to us, and it was extremely scary. I haven't had peace about it because I don't know what our next step is. I don't know who to call. I don't know who can help. How do we handle this? We have to do better. Lubbock has to do better.
For many of those abandoned calls, dispatchers typically try to call back. So far this year, LPD's dispatchers called 88% of those callers back. As for Acker, it's been 2 days since her dad's fall, and she tells me she still has not heard back from a dispatcher. The trend for LPD in 2023 is looking like more than 188,000 total calls to 911, with nearly 16% abandoned if the second half of the year is anything like the first.